Be king who wants to take it away. King Donald I. That. We're rising up again this time, non-violently, raising our voices to declare no kings.
At the U.S.-Saudi Investment Forum, where Prince Salman and the Burger King made a very dramatic entrance. What is going on? Once the music stopped, the real show started.
I always want to be modest as I can. They say this has been the best 9 months that any president has ever had.
You know, Truman ended World War II within 6 months of taking office. He's even better than that. I wish he would for once give himself some credit already. It's just it was a parade of the unpleasant, and no one seemed to be enjoying themselves less than Melania. That is the look of someone who's wondering when Congress is going to vote to release her.
Trump didn't merely face a roasting. He got butchered, carved up, and served back as nationwide shame. One comedy segment, one cinematic giant, and suddenly the planet's most inflated ego came crashing. Kimmel threw the first punch, De Niro burned the house down. And Trump, he totally fell apart. What followed wasn't recovery. It was a catastrophic breakdown that somehow got worse. Stick around, because this madness has barely begun.
The politicians are going to recognize they either face the wrath of Trump or the wrath of the people. And they have to be more afraid of the wrath of the people and realize this is not good. I better strap on my balls and do something about it.
Do you think they got that message, that's going to resonate with them as the week comes into?
It has to. We can't let up. Cannot let up on it because he is not going to leave.
Flashbulbs popped. The crowd burst out laughing. And somewhere, a furious president discovered that late-night television is the one arena where authority counts for absolutely nothing. Jimmy Kimmel, carrying that dangerous grin and razor-sharp timing that could crack anyone wide open, walked onto that stage like any ordinary host. But what happened next caught absolutely everyone off guard.
You really worry that if he were to win again, and I'm not saying this like it's such a far-fetched notion, if he were to win again, that he would not give up power after?
You know he won't. You know he won't. He even said it. He's never going to give it up. And anybody who deludes themselves in thinking that he is, shame on you.
You have compared the Trump family to a gangster family, which is something coming from you. What do you mean?
They are. Well, he because he thinks.
Hold on a moment. Enjoying what you see. Lock it in, smash that subscribe button, and keep watching because things are only getting wilder from here. Now, let's get back into it. This had nothing to do with laughs. This was about unmasking, dismantling, and dragging the country's most notorious ego through the mud. Trump, anticipating gentle teasing, had zero clue what was headed straight for him. It opened casually enough, a couple of sharp digs at voting history, some cheeky shots at that famous hairstyle, but suddenly the entire atmosphere in that studio changed completely.
We're in a very bad situation. I remember you and I about 5-6 years ago talking. I'm down at the Spring Studios. Something about. I said, "What just happened? Just happened." No, it didn't. Didn't happen. It's all about truth, and what we have here is a denial of truth all over the place, and even the speech that he made after is insane. It's just insane, and I'm very, very concerned about it. I think we all are.
The instant De Niro hit that screen, a Hollywood storm of pure contempt. Everything in that room shifted completely. The crowd went absolutely wild. Stage lights blazed, and Trump's composure began crumbling like a structure hit by a devastating tremor.
I did not understand anything about humanity, people. He has no empathy. I don't know what he is, but he's an alien, and he wants to hurt this country. It's something deeply psychological in him. He wants to hurt people. He wants to hurt this country. He doesn't care. And what saddens me the most, upsets me the most, is that people follow him and they think and they kiss his ass and they look up to him. And I don't understand it. I don't understand the people.
De Niro didn't merely talk. He conducted a full tutorial in composed but utterly crushing judgment. The variety that never screams but cuts so quietly it follows you into every future appearance. For the crowd, it was comedy gold. For Trump, it was survival mode. Every line, every calculated glance felt like a searchlight exposing years of pure manufactured greatness. These weren't punchlines. They were windows, revealing an arrogance too massive for any building to hold.
White House, he will not leave the White House. Anybody thinks he'll do this, he'll do that, is just deluding themselves. The Republicans, most of all, because they know, but they're going along with it. It's a classic bully situation. We see it, and there's no other. To face a bully, you have to face him and fight it out and back him off and back him down. That's the only way you can.
And then the unavoidable arrived. Trump, feeling authority vanishing beneath him, fought frantically to recover. Words launched everywhere. Movements grew bigger. His voice caught somewhere between raw aggression and complete bewilderment. Exactly the variety of spectacle that leaves political commentators nodding quietly and television hosts fist-bumping behind the scenes. The harder he pushed for command, the stronger Comedie's stranglehold grew. Every comeback, every dramatic hand movement simply poured gasoline on the crowd's burning enjoyment. But here's what truly grips you. It wasn't merely the embarrassment, it was the precision behind it all. Then everything truly ignited, when hand-picked footage from past occasions began rolling across that screen. Every single clip a beautifully wrapped package of pure contradiction. Pledges that crumbled, declarations demolished by their own recordings. Chapters where popular opinion had silently turned against him completely. Trump, frantically scanning for whatever was coming next, twitched. Stumbled and whispered things nobody could interpret, yet everybody understood perfectly. Each tiny facial movement exploded online before the broadcast even reached half the country. Every grin, every grimace, an absolute treasure handed freely to the world. Now,
I mean, he's so blatantly stupid. He's a punk. He's a dog. He's a pig. He's a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt who doesn't know what he's talking about, doesn't do his homework, doesn't care, thinks he's gaming society, doesn't pay his taxes. He's an idiot. Colin Powell said it best. He's a national disaster. He's an embarrassment to this country. It makes me so angry that this country has gotten to this point, that this fool, this bozo, has wound up where he has. He talks how he wants to punch people in the face. Well, I'd like to punch him in the face.
at this point, digital platforms had already gone completely nuclear. Not a single breath of relief came as Kimmel pushed forward, switching from sharp comedy to pure disbelief, the entire studio absorbing every involuntary flinch, every painted-on smile. De Niro, moving with quiet precision and a ferocity saved only for the greatest theatrical battles, kept tightening the screws relentlessly. The crowd had abandoned simple laughter entirely. Bodies pitched forward, utterly hypnotized by the collapse of someone once considered completely bulletproof. Meanwhile, deep inside Trump's camp, assistants were huddling together in absolute silent terror. Every tactic designed for campaign stages, televised briefings, and calculated online warfare. None of it translated here. Every single bit of it failed spectacularly. The composed exterior that had carried him through countless previous appearances was disintegrating rapidly, overtaken by pure, unfiltered chaos that left everyone questioning whether massive, unchecked arrogance can ultimately destroy its own creator. Nobody missed the bitter twist. A figure who had spent years bending public opinion now sat completely powerless against the combined genius of one television comedian and one Hollywood legend.
I hate bullies, thugs who use their strength to push other people around. They think they can achieve power and hang on to it by intimidating others. Sadly, sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't. And now we have Trump. He's all that, about intimidation, retribution. He's going to prosecute. He's going to send you to jail for having an abortion. He's going to take your Medicare and Social Security away. He's going to deport you. He's going to send the military after you if you defy him. You know who this shit works on? The MAGA politicians who are afraid of losing their power.
What made this show extraordinary wasn't simply the content. It was the precision of every single moment. The silences, the edits, the gradual build-ups, nothing happened accidentally. Every eruption of laughter, every sharp intake of breath, every passing emotion crossing Trump's face was a deliberately engineered storytelling peak. Hearing a punchline is one thing, but having your entire identity dismantled and reassembled live on national television is something else completely. Humor can operate like a scalpel, and that particular night it conducted bypass surgery on a sitting public figure with zero anesthesia. Even behind the scenes, the shockwaves hit instantly and enormously. This was living artwork, mockery refined into pure calculated weaponry. And Trump? He transformed into an involuntary main character, headlining a production where every instinctive response only buried him deeper. Every blunder fed the crowd's hunger, every facial reaction became tomorrow's headline. Eventually, it bordered on hallucination, a figure built entirely around dominating press rooms and electrifying campaign crowds. Now completely at the mercy of a written television segment. His own face was being commentated on by strangers laughing in real time. Every advantage had evaporated completely. Each attempt to strike back only dragged him further into a circus that dwarfed anything his advisors or publicity machine could possibly contain. The breathtaking madness of it all was genuinely beyond description.
America's Philistine president has had himself appointed head of one of our premier cultural institutions. He has cut funding and support to the arts, humanities, and education. And now he has announced a 100% tariff on films produced outside the U.S. Let that sink in for a minute. You can't put a price on creativity, but apparently you can put a tariff on it. Of course,
when that segment finally wrapped, nobody could argue with what had just happened. That studio had watched a very public collapse that would bounce around every platform for weeks. Footage would replay on a loop. Analysts would tear apart each individual second. And Trump, despite throwing everything at it, had utterly failed to wrestle back any advantage whatsoever. He had walked into a comedy battlefield completely blind to the sheer destructive power of weaponized satire. And what followed was equal parts catastrophic and outrageously watchable. De Niro didn't arrive for pleasantries. He arrived to completely obliterate. Each carefully chosen word carried deliberate weight, as though an entire lifetime of legendary screen work had been quietly preparing him for exactly this platform. He targeted the administration not through volume, but through razor-thin accuracy, ripping apart contradictions, shattered pledges, and bewildering choices that had colored every single year of Trump's reign. Every strike connected with devastating impact, dragging into daylight the realities his carefully manufactured image had fought furiously to bury. That entire presidency, previously marketed as unstoppable and godlike, had been reduced overnight to nothing beyond a collection of punchlines stitched together by cold, undeniable truth.
you see it all the time. He will not want to leave. He set it up with his, I guess he's the Goebbels of the cabinet, Stephen Miller. He's a Nazi. Yes, he is, and he's Jewish, and he should be ashamed of himself. It's all nonsense. We know it's all racist. It's all. I mean, that's what he appeals to. That's what Trump is. Everything is. What you see is what you get. It's not going to change with him. Everything. He's just. The point is, we have to keep fighting and pushing until he is out. Period. There's no other way. He's not going to want to leave the White House. What is he facing? He's facing certain things. No matter what the Supreme Court, they're going to find a way to go after him for what he's done, all the awful, monstrous things that he's done.
Nobody was shocked by what came next. The very instant De Niro's dissection launched, that famous face traveled from arrogant satisfaction to absolute bewilderment, then straight into barely contained rage. Every involuntary movement, every rapid-eye blink, every frantic attempt to cut in simply validated everything being thrown at him. The longer De Niro continued, the faster Trump's carefully constructed version of reality disintegrated. For everyone watching, it was the greatest show imaginable. A gradual, catastrophic breakdown unfolding live and unfiltered, converting political ammunition into pure electrifying theater. De Niro didn't merely reveal Trump's deceptions, he mounted them on a wall like a museum exhibition of breathtaking nonsense. Every abandoned pledge, every self-contradicting declaration, every invented reality transformed into ammunition for laughter and jaw-dropping amazement. And Trump, historically so masterful at bending media coverage, suddenly found every weapon ripped from his hands. Every counterattack, every protective movement, every bid to seize command exploded directly in his face. It was as though humor had evolved into an actual governing authority, dragging leadership to justice in ways conventional political opposition had never once managed.
Bottom line is, it's Biden versus Trump. We want to live in a world that we want to live in and enjoy living in, or live in a nightmare. Vote for Trump and you'll get the nightmare. Vote for Biden and we'll be back to normalcy. I don't want to feel the way I did, and many of us don't, after the election in 2016, where we couldn't believe that it happened. The guy is a total monster. And anybody, I don't understand it. I guess they get behind that kind of logic. They want to fuck with people, screw them, because they're unhappy about something. He's such a mean, nasty.
Every bid Trump made to wrestle back authority only dragged him further underwater. He flailed, signaled, and fought desperately to insert his own version of events. But the tide had turned completely against him. Each involuntary body movement handed comedians fresh ammunition. Every comeback arrived preloaded with its own destruction. De Niro's ice-cold, methodical dissection of everything this administration had touched made Trump's impulses appear increasingly theatrical, increasingly ridiculous, increasingly and painfully ordinary. The electricity in that room, masterfully engineered through flawless pacing and razor delivery.
I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye that we all take for granted. And elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave. He will never leave. You know that. He will never leave. What does that mean? Is that the country we want to live in? Do we want him running this country?
Ignited into an unstoppable entertainment inferno. Yet something far weightier had taken over beyond simple laughs. De Niro was positioning a magnifying glass directly over the Oval Office, revealing not just blunders and exaggerations, but a catastrophic collapse of integrity and responsibility. He spotlighted disastrous governing choices and deeply troubling judgments, yet carried himself with a strange, refined dignity throughout, because De Niro wasn't simply ridiculing, he was constructing a devastating intellectual blueprint exposing precisely how broken pledges multiply, how questionable choices snowball, and how sharp, intelligent satire can reduce even the most aggressively defended reputation to absolute rubble. Nat changed this had nothing to do with simple amusement. It was about raw, undeniable truth. Every crafted punchline, every razor-sharp observation burned, like a searchlight over an administration constructed far more on theater than actual governance. Trump's catastrophic failure to survive under that searchlight became the defining thread running through the entire night, generating bottomless content for both hysteria and genuine soul-searching. The collision between staged performance and bitter reality grew increasingly impossible to ignore, because Trump, a figure who had spent years bending every story through campaign stages,
kissing his ass. And now they're trying to intimidate us. We will not allow that, not even for a minute, not even for a second. We need to show them our power and vote them all out, every one of them. The way to take down a bully is to look him straight in the eye and then watch him start to crumble. That's what Kamala Harris did at the debate where she totally dominated Trump, using her intelligence, her experience, her decency, and her actual plans to make life better for Americans. She reduced Trump to the little blustering punk that he is. Trump doesn't have a clue about anything, about how
televised briefings and digital warfare, now sat completely helpless against a production that ran purely on honesty and cold iron logic. Abandoned partnerships that bewildered former supporters, bold declarations annihilated by his own recorded behavior. Every bit of it became perfect material for gut-punching, targeted ridicule. The crowd roared absolutely. But beneath every laugh lived a chilling recognition of a deeply troubling pattern of incompetence and dishonesty. Stretching back years, humor that evening wasn't merely a diversion. It was a masterclass in accountability, a shared public admission of everything that had unraveled so catastrophically. And watching Trump desperately claw for dignity was genuinely excruciating. Every movement, every wounded comeback, every bid to project strength was swallowed instantly by either thunderous mockery or yet another layer of humiliating revelation. It became an endless, brutal loop. Every fresh attempt simply poured rocket fuel on an already raging inferno. Nat changed that crowd wasn't simply sitting and watching. They had become active participants in the destruction, feeding hungrily off the collapse of someone who had previously appeared completely untouchable. Timing, execution, and raw collective anticipation had collided into one unstoppable force. As the night pushed forward, the madness only multiplied. Kimmel, armed with his wickedly sharp wit, and De Niro wielding his precisely calculated takedowns, formed a combination so powerful.
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. It looks like it was. We're checking it out. The demonstrations were very small, very ineffective, and the people were whacked out. When you look at those people, those are not representative of the people of our country.
Mr. President, besides San Francisco...
By the way, I'm not a king.
Trump had absolutely nothing in his arsenal to counter it. Despite an entire career built on manipulating media coverage, Trump discovered himself spiraling in directions even he couldn't predict or contain. The whole event had developed its own heartbeat, setting its own pace and writing its own ending entirely. Every movement, every fleeting expression swung violently between flat denial, total bewilderment, and barely suppressed rage, each reaction single-handedly proving every accusation without requiring another word. When the final moment arrived, the president stood completely and utterly naked before the world. De Niro's extraordinary fusion of sharp wit, towering intelligence, and commanding presence had elevated what could have been a throwaway television segment into a defining landmark of an entire generation. Every boast of capability, every desperate bid to own the story, every theatrical display of power had been surgically stripped down by comedy and exposed as hollow, meaningless performance. Niro Trump had stepped into territory where every weapon he had ever relied upon was completely useless. The watching world, simultaneously entertained and brutally educated, had just witnessed an entire identity and governing philosophy torn to shreds in front of their eyes. The fallout hit instantly and spread everywhere. De Niro's contributions weren't punchlines. They were a devastating microscope, a ruthless examination of leadership, and an iron-fisted revelation of every crack running through this entire political machine. Trump, in turn, became history's most vivid example of what happens when boundless, unchecked arrogance crashes headfirst into unforgiving public scrutiny. Even a week later, the avalanche kept rolling. Digital platforms, television follow-ups, and editorial columns all continued dissecting that single extraordinary night. What had launched as casual viewing had crystallized into a generational cultural earthquake, where comedy, accountability, and mass awakening all collided simultaneously. And Trump, despite fighting with absolutely everything he had permanently lost ownership of a story that would now define him forever.